Well, good morning, Charged Up Studio listeners, and welcome back to another episode where you'll get charged up for success. I'm Dana Olivo, your host and CEO of Market Atomy, LLC. And today we've got a very exciting podcast for you. We all like the idea of telling stories. That's what draws us all in. We've done it since we were a little child and our parents used to tell us stories. And fortunately for us, we can continue doing it while we're in business. And that's what our special guest today, Sean Perlmutter, is going to talk to us about, is how to be a storyteller when it comes to our business. Welcome, Sean.
Thanks a bunch, Dana. It's such a pleasure being here and being able to talk to the charged up audience. I'm excited.
Oh, I'm excited to have you here and hear what you have to say. I'm all about storytelling. My business was completely founded on storytelling. And I'll let everybody in my audience know right now, I was totally unprepared for this podcast. So we are flying by the seat of our pants with our stories. We're going to make them up as we go.
Dana, that's our story for this podcast, is that this is being done by the seat of our pants. So we're sticking to it.
Exactly it. And I hope you don't hear all the mowers going on in the background. They're trying to get it in while the rain has stopped because we've had some very, very heavy rainstorms here. So they're trying to get as much as they can.
I'll tell you, actually, in a way, you're lucky. I'm on the West Coast in the San Francisco Bay Area, and we've got the opposite problem. We don't have enough water. We've got drought and fires. It's
oh my goodness,
bad over here as well.
So let me tell you a little bit about Sean before we get started. He is a specialist with storytelling, branding, and interpersonal communication. He's been a coach consultant for over 15 years, serving clients like Snowflake, Disney Consumer Products, Experi, Veeva, and Centex Homes. Okay, I know about 3 of those.
Experi is a tech company, and I don't know which ones you know and don't know. Veeva
I know the Disney Consumer, Centex Homes, and
Veeva,
Snowflake.
Snowflake is the hottest cloud computing data software as a service company in tech right now.
Oh my goodness. See, I didn't know that. All right. So in 2018, Sean co-founded Pivotal Twist to foster quantum growth for professionals and organizations through upskilling, brand development, and platform building. Sean was an actor, writer, and director as a young man, and his experience informs his work in countless ways. A daily meditator and big NBA fan, he lives in the San Francisco Bay Area with his wife and son, wishing he could eat pastry without gaining weight. And we get
so
to that,
true.
We get to that age, you know?
It's so
when you
true.
have to worry about what you eat. Wouldn't it be so much better if we could just remain, little and not worry about it, right?
You said it. One point of clarification, Dana. I'm a daily meditator, not a daily mediator.
Oh,
so
okay.
I meditate every day. But if I had to mediate every day, I'd be pulling what little hair I have out.
Okay. I must have legal on the brain for some reason. So let's get started.
Sure.
Let's just talk a little bit about storytelling. How did you get involved in storytelling? Is it the acting side that got you involved in the telling of stories?
Yes, in a word, yes. So when I was in my 20s, right up into my early 30s, I was pursuing the Hollywood dream. I was an actor and a screenwriter and a wannabe director. I directed a short film and was interested in that side of things too. I was all about storytelling, what you might call narrative storytelling. And needless to say, that career didn't work out. So I pivoted. I had to go through my own pivotal twist, if you will. And from there, I got into copywriting. And then eventually I became a brand and marketing consultant as well. Just in the last 3 years or so, though, I joined forces with my partner, who was also a actor, writer, director as a young man. He and I did a show together, Frankenstein the Musical, if you care to know. And we both have an appreciation for and a respect for and a facility with storytelling. And each of us have brought storytelling to our work. My partner is a coach and consultant just like I am. And now with Pivotal Twists, we're looking to apply artistry to the craft of successful business practices.
Interesting. You know, I'm all about storytelling. I'm always telling stories about things that have happened in my life, in my career, you know, and things like that. And if you listen back to a lot of my podcasts, you will hear some of those stories. The biggest story I have right now kind of crosses over that pivotal transformation as far as I'm concerned. You know, in the beginning of when Market Atomy started, it started as a result of an accident I had down in Brazil, where I was hit by a city bus going 45 miles an hour while I was crossing over the street to my apartment.
Ooh.
And, you know, that story line is what I tended to kind of steer away from in the very beginning, because I did not want people associating me with an accident. You know what I'm saying? I didn't want them associating me with that. But what I learned was by telling that story, it drew people in and it helped them see the vulnerabilities within me, because that pivot from that accident and everything is what helped me realize that I needed to be out there helping other small solo entrepreneurs and how to protect themselves when things like this happen.
That is beautiful. Actually, that's a story in and of itself. The story of how that affected your career is a story. And by the way, I want to tip my hat to you, Dana, for learning that lesson. Because yes, indeed, we live in a world right now where people they've got all the information they need at their fingertips. You know, thank goodness for the internet. And so if you are putting yourself out there as a business owner, as a thought leader, whatever it is, and let's say, to use the vernacular, your poop don't stink, then people are going to see right through it. The opposite side of the coin is when you can show your vulnerabilities, when you can share your mistakes or your missteps, people will see you as being more human, more believable and credible, and here's the kicker, more trustworthy. And we all know that we want our audience to know, like, and trust us, because once they do, it's easier for them to become a client of ours. So well done.
Yep. Well, I have found that through the storytelling or through the events that I have gone through, which become the stories, I have found that going through those has, in the beginning, had really kind of held me back and made me question my capabilities of doing things. And what I've learned is over the time is that those events I'm going through are what contribute to my expertise in what I do. You know, a perfect example is as a strategist, you know, I did not get my MBA. I got a BS. I got 2 BSs, okay? I got 2 BSs. Bachelor's of Science is what it is.
I understand.
You got it. Okay. So I got 2 bachelor's degrees. Okay. But I don't have an MBA. Most strategists have those MBAs. They can go in and they talk at a very high level. Okay. And me, tell it to me simply. I tell anybody I'm working with, look, if I can't understand it, you have to illustrate it. You have to draw it out for me, flow diagram it, do whatever. Well, coming from my client's perspective, I understand that because my clients, solo and micro entrepreneurs, they don't understand business. So I have to come at it from a different point of view. So when I compare myself to other strategists, that's exactly what I'm doing, is I'm trying to come at it from a different point of view. When you mention the word poop online, I had a fellow strategist that I looked up to. And he, after a panel that we both sat on, he said, we need to talk. And I'm thinking to myself, oh crap, what did I do? What did I say wrong? Immediately, that's what goes to my head. And so when we sit down over coffee, he looks at me and he says, you're poop. And I said, huh? He says, you know what you're talking about. And I told him, I said, that means a lot coming from you. His name was Harry. Harry, is because I look up to you. He says, no, you know as much as I do, any other strategist here. You just deliver it in a different way. And so that's important when it comes to storytelling, is understanding you don't have to be perfect at it.
You do not have to be perfect at it. One of the definitions that resonates for me of storytelling is it's the application of emotions to past events. And the reason that resonates for me so well is that it's easy to list out things that happen. But when you apply the human experience, and that's where emotion comes in, now all of a sudden there's something sticky about it. There's something that makes you want to lean in and hear more about it. And so I think every great story has the emotional aspect to it as well. And I think you're sort of alluding to that here in your journey as well. Yes, there is a fear of not being taken seriously, or there is jealousy of somebody who can speak in language that you don't yet have a facility with. There's certain emotions that come up in your storytelling. When you know what emotions you are interested in eliciting from your audience, then you can be a stellar storyteller.
Interesting. So when I am talking to somebody, in fact, I just had a call just before you. And this is somebody that was introduced to me, referred to me by somebody else. I had never talked to him. And after about 30 minutes, it's like he's inside my head. Okay. And I'm talking to him and I'm telling him, you're in my head. You're doing everything I've been doing for the last 16, 18 months, but he's doing it on the nonprofit side. And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, oh my God, is he reading my mind? But it's that connection that we're trying to get with the storytelling.
So I think you're hitting the nail on the head in another light too there, because at the end of the day, storytelling is about the human experience. And so if you tell a story well about the human experience, there are going to be other humans who say, yes, that was mine too. I felt that as well. I was going through something like that as well. I dealt with a challenge like that as well. And it can appear as if they are actually in your head, but really what's happening is they are sharing a human experience with you, if not an emotion.
Right. Huh. Interesting. So can you outline, without giving details, okay, of who, give us an idea of some stories that you've helped some of your clients with?
Sure. Let me see if I can come at it the right way. Because story can be used in so many different ways, Dana. So let's talk about verbal communication. If I'm meeting somebody at a networking event, or at the classic, in an elevator, I've got an elevator pitch to make, or, it's a cocktail party and I happen to be introduced to somebody and I'm telling them what I'm all about. Storytelling can play a big part in that respect, but that's not the only way. Of course, storytelling can also be applied to the written word. Go figure.
Right.
And that can be marketing, that can be reports even, that can be white papers. It can be, there's just about an infinite number of ways that it can be applied through the way you speak, through the way you communicate, through the written word, but then also through video and through pictures. There are ways to tell stories. Okay. So your question is, what are some examples of stories that I've helped clients to tell? I, as a coach and consultant, don't ever want to come in and say, this is a story that you need to be telling. It is much more important for me and for my clients to bring them to the stories that they need to tell. And here's what that means. So there's a lot of different types of stories that can be told. You can tell your origin story. You can tell a customer acquisition story. You can tell a product overview story. You can tell a story that's a metaphor for what your client is going to go through, right? There's an endless amount of stories. And then there's the craft of storytelling itself. So if I've got 30 seconds in an elevator with Elon Musk and I want to tell him what we're all about, instead of just saying, oh, pivotal twist is this, I might start with a hook and with a little bit of conflict, and then show him how I resolve that conflict in 30 seconds. Now, that's the craft of storytelling, but I'm not saying this is a certain type of story or this is the story that a client should do. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. Yeah. Depending on, even like with this this podcast that we're doing right now, depending on what we're talking about, in the back of my mind, I am relating to what's being said. Okay. When you were talking about, I can't remember what it was you were just saying about a seminar or networking. And the immediate story that comes to mind is I was attending a networking event, kind of like a presentation on hotel hospitality, okay? And medical tourism is what it was. I was trying to think of what that word is, medical tourism. And it was at one of the hospitals here, and I went and they had changed the room, okay? So the room had been relocated, but we couldn't find it. And I'm walking around the hallways trying to find signs and everything. And the next thing I know, there's about 3 or 4 other of us walking around the hallways trying to find this room. And finally we stop and we look at each other. Are you all looking for this? It was like we congregated in the hallway. And then finally someone came up and said, oh, it's over here. Okay. And so we walk in there. I think there was 4 or 5 of us. We walk in there, and I had been in Brazil for a couple of months, so I hadn't been back, and so this was my first time back. And I walk in the door, and all of a sudden, I have about 3 or 4 people coming up to me saying, "Oh my God, where have you been?" And all this other stuff. And we go about the meeting, and we have the meeting. Well, the next morning, I am getting ready for work, brushing my teeth, and I get this call, and I answer the phone with toothpaste in my mouth and everything. And it turns out it was one of the guys that was roaming the hall with me. And after I spit out the toothpaste and everything, I, told him, I said, I apologize. He says, no. He says, just after we met yesterday and we went in there and I saw everybody coming up to you and everything, he says, I told myself that's somebody I need to get to know. And so you had given me your card, and I said, okay, that's why I'm calling. We need to get together and get to know each other, that type deal. And, those are stories that I remember when I'm talking to clients that they can probably relate to.
Yeah, and let's get granular here. That person that called you, that person that said you were a person that he wanted to meet, there was a little story there for him.
Exactly.
And that's what catalyzed the action for him to pick up the phone, right? So that story was this very interesting, friendly woman was lost and but seemed to have a sense of humor about it, and told me what she was interested in. So that stuck in my mind. What's really important to take away from this is stories don't have to be long. They don't have to be really involved. In fact, stories can be just a little tidbit of emotion or context. I want to share with you an example to that end that I share with my clients and the participants in our training sessions.
Okay.
Stories don't have to be long. Stories can be short. The shortest story ever told was 6 words by Hemingway. And the story is this: for sale, baby shoes, never worn.
Wow.
6 words, and in those 6 words, you get the emotion. You understand there's a loss there, and the human experience there is we've all dealt with loss before and death, right? And you have a sense of compassion for the teller of that story. So the point I want to make here is, you don't have to get bogged down in, I've got to make sure that I'm telling a story where there's conflict, and how does a person overcome the conflict, and what does a person learn at the end? Sure, that is definitely a story, but a story can be as simple as 6 words, just giving some context for it. For instance, I was thinking to myself this morning, if I shared with you, Dana, today I saw a bear, you would say, oh, well, that's pretty interesting. Okay. Mm-hmm. If I said, Dana, today I saw a bear on my morning walk, you start to lean in and say, wait, well, where do you live? If I said, today I saw a bear on my morning walk and he was running towards me, that's a story. Oh my goodness, what did you do? How did you get away from it? All of a sudden you're involved, right? I don't know, that might probably a few more than 6 words there, but you get my point. So you can tell your business stories the same way. It's not that my product saves you time. It's my product helps you to spend more time with your kids. Or my product gives you an extra 45 minutes on those spreadsheets that are so important. You just got to find your way to tell the story about the benefit of your product.
My product stops the money bleed.
Okay. Now, so I think that is really strong. And the human component there is the money bleed, right? So how do people feel when they are bleeding money, right? It's scary, and you feel stressed and pressured, right, to do well. So there's also an opportunity to lean into those emotions, and you can find your way there as well.
My tagline is the business birthing specialist.
I like it. And you're a midwife. You're a midwife for solopreneurs.
For solopreneurs, yes. And then one of the taglines that I say is, without customers, it's like being pregnant without a way to deliver.
Ooh. Now that is really strong, right? Because you're making a metaphor there, and for
some of us who can understand it.
Well, I was going to say, for women in particular, but really, if you're human, you get it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's exactly it. I do have a tendency to kind of visualize things, and put it in words. And that's another thing to think about. can you talk to that as far as when you're trying to communicate with your target audience and you try and put yourself in their shoes and visualize what they're going through, and how do you put words to that?
Okay, great question. Very important question, because it is an unforced error, let's say, to make the story about you, the business owner, okay? Your stories need to be told with the client being the hero of the story. Mm-hmm. You, as the business owner, you're like the guide. You're the Sherpa leading them up Mount Everest. You're the one that's offering support and guidance, advice, resources, all of those things. But they are the hero of their story. They're the star of the show. And we want to keep on, we want to keep them at the center of that story so that they understand, they can see themselves as you tell those stories. I think that's the best way to answer that question, that right. we want to make sure that now, okay, it's important to say there are rules and there are exceptions to the rules, right? Yes, there are going to be times where as a business owner, you need to tell your own story. So I am not saying that across the board, right. the client is always the hero. There are times where you've got to tell your story too. But by and large, the rule is that you want to keep the client at the center of the journey.
So with that being said, okay, with me, it's easy for me to put myself in their shoes because I've been there twice, been there, done that, okay? But what about for an entrepreneur that can't really relate to what their customer is feeling, can't uncover it? What are some tricks that can be done to kind of uncover that, to
Terrific.
kind of, gain insight?
That's a really nice question, and very important for first time or young business owners. You absolutely must mix it up with your audience, with the people that you want to serve. I am very fond of the saying, love your customer. Like, I believe in love anyway, all right? I'm a win-win person. I always want the people around me and the people I'm serving always to be happy and to be satisfied. That's my personality anyway.
Yeah.
However, that being aside, that pushed aside, it makes business sense to fall in love with your customer, to really have compassion for their challenges, for having understanding about their wins, for knowing what they go through on their journey. So it is imperative to fall in love with somebody. You got to spend some time with them, right?
Right.
It is imperative for business owners to spend time with their audience, to mix it up with them, to talk to them, to ask questions, and you'll get the answers to what things bother me, what things am I struggling with, what are my challenges right now, what are my pain points right now, and all of that information is food for you to resolve their issues.
Right. What I have found, my mode of selling, okay, is not to go in for the sale right off the bat, especially when you don't know who it is that you are prospecting or whatever, and I think this has become very popular now on the networking side, where you do your one-on-ones, okay? I always did my one-on-ones around coffee or lunch, and it was never to sell. It's to get to know them. It's to understand and decipher from what they're talking, what they're saying, is to pinpoint, okay, things that I can latch onto that are going to help me understand. Okay, so it's like two friends talking, just like we're doing right now. It's two friends talking. You're not trying to sell anything right away. Eventually, it leads to something that, I can relate to that.
I think if you're selling lipstick, you can make a sale right off the bat. But for most businesses, you need to spend the time.
Right.
Here's the idea behind that. Dana, would you say yes if somebody proposed to you the first night they met you?
No.
Probably not, right?
Yeah.
None of us would, because we need to get to know them. Well, we're not going to do business with somebody until we get to know them.
Right.
And so as business owners, we can't expect a sale based on, hey, here I am, and here's what I'm all about, and here's why it's good for you. Are you ready to jump in?
Right.
No. Let's get into relationship. Let's make a relationship. And as you do, remember I had said earlier before, we all want our audience to know, like, and trust us, because that precedes a conversion to a sale. So to get to the point where people know you, well, you're going to be publishing, you're going to be out there talking to people, you're going to be meeting people as they come to like you. That means you're spending more time with them. Maybe you're making more gives, you're being generous of spirit to these people. And then they will finally come to trust you because maybe you're giving them good advice. Maybe you're introducing them to people who can help them along their way. Once you've got all those three things down, the know, like, and trust, now it's time to say, well, by the way, we help clients like yours in XYZ. And they are a lot more likely to say, well, this is great. I need you. And because they already know, like, and trust you, they're easier to get on board.
Cool. No, that's great. So let's talk a little bit about Pivotal Twist.
Sure.
Tell me a little bit about what you do, the training. What's the difference between consulting and
coaching and training?
Coaching.
Yeah,
right.
That's a really great question. So as I had said earlier, my partner, when he left the Broadway, he let go of the Broadway dream. I was more about the Hollywood dream. He was more about the Broadway dream. But he went into coaching and training. Coaching is one-to-one. Training is one-to-some, right? Or one-to-many.
Right.
And so he got certified and has been working with big banks and corporate clients. And he does so with executive coaching, performance coaching, or team training. So that means he is teaching people to do something a certain way. With executive coaching, there's a slight difference. Executive coaching is where we act more like a servant leader, and we are helping our clients to clarify their goals and to help them to come up with their own paths to achieving those goals, right? But in other respects, like a performance coach will help somebody who says, I've got a presentation in 2 weeks, I need help. And so we say, okay, we know what to do. We're going to come in and help you. That's performance coaching. And then training is we're working with a team of 25, a team of 50, and we'll do a virtual workshop with them with follow-ups and individual coaching as well, to try to help them upskill, to increase their skills and get better at something so that they can achieve their pivotal twist. One of the reasons for our company name is that it's all about a transformative experience. We want people to acquire some knowledge or some skill or some idea or some feeling even that can help take their career or business to the next level, right? Right. Okay, so on the consulting side, we typically work with small business owners or authors/thought leaders, and we will help them to, I called it platform building, and that's because very typically, notably in the author world, they need a platform to help sell themselves. And a platform means, do you have an audience? Do you have the media there for how you communicate to the audience? Why? A publisher is going to look at that and say, ooh, this person, already has a built-in audience, already has a value proposition. This person is worth taking a chance on to publish their book, right? So on that side of things, we help with the brand. We help build a brand. That's one of my specialties. But we also do things like digital marketing with email, and we'll run community groups and we do newsletter, email management, social media management, that type of thing.
Interesting. So if I was to hire you, okay, how would that process go?
If you're on the coaching side, and if you're an individual, then the process is, as you and I have both agreed before, first getting to know each other. I want to know what you're struggling with. I want to know what is working well for you. I want to know how long you've been in business, and I want to know where you'd like to be in 3-5 years as well. I'm going to take that information, as well as everything else that I glean from a meeting with you, and come up with a way to coach you so that you can achieve those goals in a way that's transformative, in a way that you feel you've taken another step in your career. That's really important to both my partner and I. We really want, as I said before, we're all about win-wins. So it's not just about, I've got a client, I delivered my training or my coaching and got paid and that's it. Not at all. I really want that human connection. Is probably from my background as a storyteller, right? And on stage and working with other actors. That's probably where I got all this from. But I want my people, my clients, to do well, and I'm sort of invested in their success right along the way.
So I'm going to put you on the spot here.
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay.
Yes.
What is your takeaway from our meeting here and the last one we had?
Okay. My takeaway is you, in particular, are also passionate about serving people. And I love this about you, Dana. It comes through in your conversation. It's coming through in our podcast today. You really care about your audience like I do. You really do want their success. You really do have compassion for their challenges and what they're going through too. That's why you're willing to, sort of put your thumb on it and explore it so you can demystify or come up with resolutions for it. You and I share that mindset. Right. You and I both have that same perspective. We want other humans to do well. And that's my takeaway.
No, and I appreciate that. You hit it on the head. Even in an industry that is struggling financially, they still need that help. And I'm there for them. Now, I've had to come up with different means of bringing them the help that they need so they don't have to pay my large fees, which is where the academy comes in, and stuff like that. But it's critical that they learn this, especially right now with what we're going through with COVID and all this other stuff. It's critical that they learn this. And, so I'm glad to hear that it comes out. Okay. And I do see it in you too. So
that's good. I'm doing something right then. I think you are as well.
Right, Sean.
I've got to tip my hat to you, Dana, because with your podcast and with your business and the way you talk about it, which is jargon free. By the way, that's another thing that we share at Pivotal Twist. We are not fans of jargon, and you're not going to ever find us using, let's say, highfalutin language. It doesn't come out of our mouths because we're so interested in the human connection. We like to talk to people, and we like to write in our published material the same way we would speak as if we were having a cup of coffee together.
Right, exactly. So what would an ideal client relationship look like from your perspective?
I really love, so of course we deal with corporate and big trainings, and we also deal with small business owners. So there's a wide spectrum in there. But the ideal client for us, let's take the corporate training off of the table. Yeah,
since we're talking to micro small business owners.
Exactly. So when we're dealing with an individual, the ideal client is one that is open to artistry as well as craft. And here's what I mean by that. So I've talked about storytelling before, and storytelling is the primary way that we infuse artistry with the craft of business, but it is not the only way. Artistry means using your imagination. It means being expressive, right? It also means trying something to see what happens. This is something that I also took from my experience as a young man. You know, as an actor and a screenwriter, you tried stuff. You tried stuff to see whether it worked. Yeah. And in business, we're so used to, you know, sort of saying, oh, what's the best practice? I don't want to make a mistake. I want to, you know, what has other people done? I just want to copy what other people have done successfully and do that. But we strongly believe that best practices are necessary. It's good to know them. And then you need to take some chances. You need to get artistic. You need to get expressive and creative and put things out there. Why? That ends up being your special sauce. Then you don't sound like everybody else that's just doing what they've learned from other people's best practices. You've got to be able to stand out in that way. So our ideal client wants to take chances, is okay with tapping into their imagination, their humanity, right? Their authenticity as a human, and bringing that to their marketing communications and their leadership as well.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. You know, I with my clients or with myself even, I'm an ideologist, okay, and I tend to think very big. My terms for big is bold, innovative, and grandiose. So when you're thinking big, you have to think that big. And that's what's going to bring out those naysayers. That's what's going to bring out those ones that are going to say, oh, you're crazy. I was told I was crazy going down into Brazil. You know, all of this. But did that stop me? No. And that's what these solo micro entrepreneurs need to understand is if you believe and if you're willing to take that risk, you can make it happen. You just need to know what it is you don't know. And that's what we're trying to bring with what you're doing, with what I'm doing. We're trying to bring that knowledge base to these solo micro entrepreneurs. Yeah. So they can make those decisions. Yes.
They say there's really 3 phases to an innovation being brought to the world. The first phase is people saying, that'll never work. Impossible. And the second phase is, I don't really think it has any chance. And the third phase is, I could have done that.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
If you
I was going to say, holy crap, I should have done that.
Right. And so if you are hearing resistance, if you're hearing people say, that could never work, take it as a good sign. You're on the path. Again, I don't want to set total rules here, except to say that rules are made to be broken, and specifying that across the board, if you hear people saying that'll never work, then that's a good sign. I don't want to say that. Sometimes they're right. Yeah. You have, you have to make that judgment.
If you don't have a good singing voice and someone's telling you don't have a good singing voice, chances are you don't have a good singing voice.
It's true. I'm just saying don't lean only on what you hear from other people. But if you're hearing people saying, no, I don't think that can work, that is not necessarily a sign that you have to let go of your pursuit.
Right.
It might be the very thing that is indicating you're on the right path.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. So, Sean, tell our listeners how they can get a hold of you should they want to talk more.
Thanks so much for asking, Dan. I've really appreciated it. And I've really enjoyed my time with you here today. So our website is pivotaltwist.com. And people can email me, Sean, SEAN, at pivotaltwist.com. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
And do you have any training sessions or anything coming up that maybe someone might be interested in?
That's a great question. Right now, all of our coaching and training is done with the client exclusively. And in 2022, we're looking to develop more courses that are for the public. So right now, they're not available. Coaching, of course, is. One-on-one coaching is. But you can't take a group training from us until next year.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll have to talk some more. Maybe we can bring a virtual training or something,
Sounds
to the
lovely.
table. All right. All right. Well, once again, this marks the end of another episode of Charged Up Studio, when small business entrepreneurs get charged up for success. Please don't forget to leave a review on whatever platform you happen to be streaming this podcast through, or leave a review on our Facebook page, Charged Up Studio. For more information on Market Atomy, go to www.marketatomy.com or reach out to info@marketatomy.com. That's it for another week. We'll talk again next week. Bye.